Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feedstuffs 365. I'm Sarah Muirhead, and agricultural meteorologist Greg Soulje is here with us on this Tuesday. Welcome, Greg.
Well, thank you, Sarah. Happy Tuesday to one and all. And I tell you, we have a very delightful, easy to take, combine rolling weather forecasted update to provide for you. And once again, you and I look like geniuses with the return of summer. And some folks might, instead of worrying about the little patchy scattered frost we had in a couple of spots over the past weekend, drought, even flash drought, should be in people's vocabulary going forward here for the next few weeks and perhaps the next couple of months. And we'll at least touch on the short-term details going forward from there.
Talk about combine weather. I'm here out in Grand Island, Nebraska this week at Husker Harvest Days, and there'll be the combines will be rolling, and I think the wind will be blowing. But
yes. Always does out there.
Fairly good weather out this direction.
And there may be a shower or two out in your general neck of the woods, maybe iffy and spotty. Nothing I think that is going to greatly impact any of the outdoor activities out there at Husker Harvest. And ought to begin to start feeling, if it's not there already, more like mid or late summer going forward than the days to come.
Nice. Gotta love that. So, Greg, your slides are up. Go ahead and take it away.
All right, let's take a look at weather shaping up. The headlines, of course, over the past weekend, we did have a few readings that fell into the upper 30s and a few locales. Most of the dominant cold air, two areas in the usual low cold spots, Corn Palace, Sioux Empire region, parts of the lower Red River Valley of the north. There were some spots that bottomed out at 36 degrees. Sioux Falls, South Dakota, for example. But again, non-damaging. 39 was a record low at Springfield, Illinois. And at Crawfordsville, Indiana, on Monday morning, they were down to 36 degrees. So some folks might have had a little frost in the pickup truck. Nothing to impact at all late season development, grain fill, and all that stuff on the corn and soybean side of things. But a reminder of the season, and don't worry, like we have been talking about, just like it's been laid out on This Week in Agribusiness on that 4-week forecast, there is no shortage of late summer, early autumn warmth coming back into much of the Corn Belt and the Plains. May come at a price with dryness and drought. And there may be some folks that are 2 and 3 weeks out from anything resembling, much like we laid out on the TV show this past weekend, where the next band of organized rain comes on through, at least as it applies to many Midwest corn and bean complex areas, and points southward and eastward from there. In any event, back into the Plain States areas, generally dry weather from Oklahoma, Texas on southward, and there are some reports of some of the planting operations with winter wheat underway there. There have been a couple of showers from Kansas, and they may spread and impact the areas around Grand Island. Short-lived, not anything impressive in the coverage department. That's going to occur well to the north and northwest in the coming days. So again, opportunity for some summer crop harvest operations from Nebraska northward, and dealing and working with livestock as well. No big issues anticipated. Warmth is coming back in, and maybe that 90-degree isotherm, would you believe, approaching the mid-stretch of September. Meanwhile, Pacific, back into the Pacific coastal sections and into the southern states. So this is the, at least the western forecast here. Air quality issues continue on because of smoke and fires in the Pacific Northwest, but relief is on the way into that part of the country. We'll take a look at the weather maps and charts, and a pretty snappy upper air trough, just like we laid out this past weekend. On This Week in Agribusiness, will bring some meaningful rainfall. Not all lightning and dry-based thunderstorm activity, but some meeting rainfall into the Pacific Northwest and from the divide on westward in the coming days. And there is another perspective into parts of the Pacific Northwest. There's still some 100-degree heat before that trough arrives. But before the rains get going, small grain harvest opportunities as well. But again, they'll be winding down, even some of those rains heading east in some of the worst drought areas of Montana and Idaho. There is the Tuesday afternoon weather maps and charts. You can see 3 separate, distinct areas of moisture, one through the upper Midwestern areas of Wisconsin, Minnesota, the upper Great Lakes region. And that'll be welcome in some spots, although most of Wisconsin and Minnesota are in much better shape with regard to soil moisture conditions, and there'll be a recovery on temperatures as well. You can see rain down through Florida, and once again, we've talked about this the past couple of weeks, and I think going forward from here, even getting less impressed with anything coming out of the Atlantic on a recurring multi-day or multi-week basis. There's just a bunch of Saharan dust once again coming off the Saharan desert and the African continent. I think there are some sources we can try and track down, maybe a satellite picture that does pick up some of those dust areas. That kills off tropical activity, much like wind shear does. The only caveat to that would be going forward would be something that forms up, and I believe the Air Force is going out and has gone out the past couple of days, keeping an eye on some thunderstorms in the eastern Gulf and the southwestern Atlantic. Invest storms, as they call them, or systems. They're not named, they're not depressions, but the rain is perhaps increasing across Florida, and you can see the Pacific Northwest, Northern California into Washington State. That is actual rain coming on down. By tonight, additional showers out through the Pacific Northwest, a smattering of showers and isolated thunderstorms into the Great Plains areas, most of the organized wet weather into the Arrowhead of Minnesota, and still on either side of the either Gulf Coast or Atlantic coast, showers and thunderstorms. And again, homegrown is what we mean from a tropical weather perspective, something that forms up in the Gulf or in the southwestern Atlantic, close to the shoreline, shallow, very warm waters. But the problem is you can't get anything really ramped up, no more than a depression or a weak tropical storm, because of wind shear. So we may get a couple of more named systems in that part of the country here in the coming weeks, but they're focused in the deep south and southeast. There are indications that something may be going on, especially from a rainfall standpoint, from Florida up into the mid-Atlantic region. There is tomorrow morning, Wednesday, pretty quiet across much of the Corn Belt, a couple of spotty showers into the plains. The rains are still going on offshore of Florida, creeping up the eastern seaboard, and a few spotty showers for the Great Lakes region, and the return of wet weather into Northern California and the Pacific Northwest. Next couple of days, moisture will play out like this. Some spots 1/2 to 3/4 into Kansas, shifting northward into Minnesota. You can see some welcome moisture just offshore of Redding and Red Bluff there in Northern California. That'll be working the Pacific Northwest. And a wet cycle through Florida will show with time making its way along and east of the Appalachian Trail to the Piedmont areas of the Carolinas. Thunderstorm chances, nothing impressive down across the central and southern high plains areas through Florida. Marginal to iffy chance for something on a stronger note, but not the right mechanisms are in a position or thermodynamics to get some active weather going in that particular part of the country. Meanwhile, here is the Atlantic Basin. And remember last week in the past week to 10 days, we had some systems coming off the African coast that were worth watching and actually had a high probability of development. No more. Too much Saharan dust. And we'll try to get a couple of resources on these updated outlooks around here. You can actually visualize, you can see these waves of Saharan dust coming off the African coast. Dust warms the atmosphere and limits release the ability for clouds to coalesce, raindrops to coalesce, and it's kind of the early fundamentals and basic stages of making tropical weather systems. Saharan dust just completely kills that off, not to mention there's wind shear still evident in the Gulf of Mexico and the southwestern Atlantic. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to be much of anything. We could get something ramped up going on a multi-week basis in October, but in any event, things are quiet in the tropical Atlantic. They continue busy in the Pacific, and that's just sometimes tells me that all the nomenclature coming out of the big headquarter data source regions of the feds, maybe not on target here, would be surprised. But in any event, more of an El Nino Pacific-driven weather cycle, more moisture into the tropical areas of Mexico, 2 systems offshore of Baja, and you can see Kiko that might make a run westward into the Big Island in the next couple of days. That's usually it's a rare direct hit, but Hawaii has also been in a multi-year drought. You'll recall the fires on one of those islands that just devastated it. So if this were to come through in a manageable state, that would be good news from a rainfall standpoint in Hawaii. Back to the mainland. The next 5 days, we've got dry weather across much of the lower Midwest. Most of the organized wet weather is down through the Gulf Coast, Florida, and there will be some shower activity extending as far north as coastal New England. Unsettled weather for the Pacific Northwest will shift eastward into the Dakotas, the uppermost Midwest, the western Corn Belt areas, probably Des Moines, and westward from there. And that's towards the end portion of the weekend. There's 90-degree heat. We told you that there was summertime coming. People kind of poo-pooed that a little bit, but yeah, it's coming in, and that'll help with crop growth and maturity, but likely worsen dryness and drought. I haven't heard much extra talk about dryness and drought and flash drought conditions, maybe because it's a benefit to field work and harvest operations, but you got to get something in the ground before you firm them up and freeze them up, and you don't want it all at once during the late fall season and early wintertime season. So that's where it stands. Anyway, Tuesdays, this afternoon's high temperatures, you can see the oranges back west of the Missouri River. Grand Island still kind of 75 to 80, but out towards maybe North Platte and west from there, Scotts Bluff heading into the 80s to near 90 degrees, some cooling in the valleys of California and the Pacific Northwest, and cool for the time of year relative to early to mid-September for over much of the eastern states, especially from the Carolinas on southward. Then by Thursday, look at that 90-degree air into St. Louis, 80s as far north as southern Wisconsin, some 90-degree air into parts of the Dakotas. So the west cools, east of the divide heats up, and some moderation in temperatures over the eastern mid-Atlantic and down through Florida. Then by Sunday, still some 85 to maybe 90-degree air into maybe as far north as North Illinois. Some of our radio stations that we service down there in Champaign, Danville, over towards Springfield and west of Indianapolis up to the Kankakee. We're in for some low 90-degree heat there this upcoming weekend. And that will be the story. Again, some accelerated crop growth and development, maturity, late season beans. Some of the rains they had there last week are just going to have to hold. Faster evaporation. Combines will be rolling out there, I'm sure. But again, we're going to begin to teleconnect some of these dry areas from the Delta, Mid-South, Lower Mississippi Valley, and make it right up through the Midwest and Ohio Valley here before anything significant in the rainfall gets going. And we're weeks away from repeating typical fall rains, even in through at least the early part of October. Thursday through Saturday, you can see that low winding its way through California, the Pacific West, into the Dakotas, the upper Midwest. It kind of loses some of its identities. It shifts into the southern Canadian prairie. And then a new one comes out and through California, the Pacific Northwest, another trough there. Then in the middle part of the country, you can see that H and that little arcing of that last line. And boy, I tell you, if it were mid-summertime, that's some 95 to 100-degree heat, but we're in mid-September, approaching the equinox on the 22nd of the month. And so it's not as oppressive, but still capable of 85 to 90-degree air, that is, and low afternoon humidity. So we get these 40 and 45-degree ranges of temperatures. You can be down in the 40s and 50s at night and head into the middle 80s to low 90s by day in that dry air, but it just accelerates evaporation. But if you're mature and things have worked out during the course of the growing season, boy, moisture reduction, half to 3/4, maybe a full percentage point each day, even without any significant wind. So that's the story there. And there's the surface charts for Thursday through early next week. Cool air tries to move into the northern Great Lakes region. You can see systems through the Pacific West, the Northwest, the Northern Divide, in through the Dakotas, and that'll be the corridor are where the more significant rains get going in the shorter term there, and down through Florida as well. Drought monitor over the next, well, this is the one that came out here as of September 2nd. There it is. Look at the shades of yellow and brown and abnormally dry, moderate drought, some pockets of severe drought, east central Illinois, down into the Missouri Boot Hill, through the mid-south regions of Memphis and southward from there. That whole area is going to kind of just congeal into one large expanding drought area going forward, while areas back west of the Missouri River expected to stay in relatively good shape. They'll be with time expectations of some recurring rainfall there. There's the snapshot of the Midwest, worst of it through Champaign, Piatt counties, and you can see down south of the Missouri, Ozarks, east of the Boot Hill, and expanding issues in through equine country. Some of those pasture lands are really suffering in through areas of Kentucky and Tennessee. Some modest improvement through Michigan, also areas of better soil moisture levels in through Wisconsin, Iowa, and Minnesota. There's the snapshot for what the feds are thinking. Came out on the 31st of August. No bickering with that. Maybe some of the improvement they're suggesting down in the lower Mississippi Valley, but a good part of the Corn Belt areas, yes, some worsening dryness and drought. Same with areas of the Pacific West. So that's the story there. There's the next 2 weeks of the upper air charts, the main rain-producing jet stream well to the north, running from about Sault Ste. Marie to the Black Hills into the Pacific Northwest. So there'll be some wet weather issues and benefits there, I guess, as long as you're caught up on spring grain harvest and there's not too much cool air to deal with, and there won't be with livestock chill in mind, and heat, plenty of it. Keep the hay and the water lines are going, and confinement areas well ventilated into the central and southern plains. A little dip in that curl, that dip into the southeastern states, kind of suggestive that there'll be still some instability, a couple of boundaries. The winds may weaken from time to time. We might get a tropical system there that just enhances rainfall, maybe a depression, maybe a very low-grade tropical storm, and that should do it. Next 2 weeks, no squibbling with this. That's 80s and so a few spots low 90s all the way into the central core belt, central plain states areas, the below average temps of the southeastern states because of cloud cover and rain. And speaking of rain, you can see a wetter pattern for the mid-Atlantic region down through Florida. Looks dead on for much of the Great Lakes, eastern and southern corn belt down through Dixie with the wettest of the weather conditions out northwest of the Twins back through Yellowstone and the Divide country. No squibbling with that whatsoever. And you could probably almost plaster this out for the next 3 or 4 weeks. We did have a system coming through later in the month of September to the beginning part of October that might bring some rain into parts of the Midwest. Not anything to greatly improve soil moisture or idle harvest operations. So, and after that, again, weather looks favorable for harvest operations, but not great. Expanding dryness and drought will be the story into the eastern and southern corn belt. Next live stream with Sarah and I, Wednesday, September 17th, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Central Time. I don't, at least at this point, don't see any big adjustments to either the fall forecast or their winter outlook on here, which basically is warm and dry to warm and wetter to cooler and wetter. And then we just kind of throw a switch by the time we get to the holidays and we're into colder weather on the move. And some of that white stuff begins to come on down, but we'll need it by then. For moisture, soil moisture, for traveling around the Midwest. So right. That's what we're expecting. That's what you look at here on a Tuesday. And that's the story. Got nothing else for you. Hang in there. No rain and safety first out there with harvest operations if you're going at it already.
Very good. Nice to hear that summer isn't quite over yet. To appreciate that, Greg. So, and that harvest is looking fairly good in terms of conditions.
Yeah, we'll see how.
So, but we'll get that all updated next week, and actually we'll be in touch with you on Friday. But we'll also get that updated with a larger, long-term outlook on Wednesday of next week, right here on Feedstuffs 365. And then, of course, every weekend, This Week in Agribusiness on RFD TV and another 100 plus affiliated stations around the country, and on daily radio. You can pick up on Greg's forecast. I mean, you know, he's telling me here this morning that he was recognized down at the breakfast place at the Hampton Inn in, I don't know, were you Michigan or somewhere?
South Haven, Michigan. A nice couple. I got the note right here. Ron and Brendan, we'll mention them on the TV show this coming weekend, from Princeton, Wisconsin. Ron is retired, was in the automotive parts business with Ford, and Brenda likes the color orange as it applies to at least to old iron. I think that is that Alice Chalmers, I believe.
I think so. I like the color orange, but it has something to do with a university in the middle of Illinois.
2-0. 2-0.
Yeah.
And,
exactly. Right. Ranked, I think 10 or 9 or something this week after this weekend.
My NIU Huskies, after a nice opening weekend, fell to Maryland, I believe. They lost. I believe Maryland is a Big Ten school, but yes, and so it goes. When NIU played Notre Dame last year, that was our season. We were there at that game. That was phenomenal. After that, rest of the season tanked, but we beat Notre Dame at least.
At least you got a good game, right?
There you go.
Very good. All right. We'll talk to you on Friday. Have a great week. And thank you all for tuning in as well.